How do you help people open their hearts again after the trauma?
What's more important than dealing with the trauma and what happened to you is the fact that you survived. And the parts of you that survived, like how are you going to take care of them? And how do you know that you're not them? You're not your body. If your arm gets cut off tomorrow, you're still you. You're not your mind. If you get a brain injury, right, and you lose part of your memory, you're still you. There's still essence within you. That is Amy.
You come from your own trials, tribulations, pain that brought you to this position where you decided to, go for your degree and get the education and pursue this path where you are helping others.
At first, it was about survival for me.
Yeah.
Both in my adolescence, just sitting around but I remember being in like 7th grade, right? And I had just turned one of my abusers, my sexual abusers, in, and we were beginning that process of going to court and going to therapy and going to group therapy and being told all the things. And I wasn't the girl that was silent. So I have been helping people speak their truth and recognize their stories and recognize abuse my entire life. So it's kind of born into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Passion from Pain. This is the show where we face what broke us and honor what built us and transform every scar into a story of strength. Today's guest is a woman who has dedicated her life to helping others do exactly that. Dr. Lisha Antiqua is a transformational speaker, trauma-informed educator, and transpersonal psychology expert whose work has been featured on Fox, NBC, ABC, and the CW. Wow. For more than 2 decades, she's been guiding survivors of abuse, burnout, and betrayal to rise from survival to sovereignty. She's also the founder of Your Own University, a global education platform teaching women to heal their identity and embody their purpose and live soul-led lives. She created the amazing You Method and Reclaim Intimacy, 2 groundbreaking systems that merge neuroscience, energy work, and spiritual psychology to help people reclaim their power and peace. Dr. Lisha is a healer and teacher and a mirror, reminding us that our own stories aren't our shame. They're our superpowers. Through her coaching, courses, and community, she's helping women and leaders worldwide end cycles of abuse and rediscover the sacred truth of who they are. In this conversation, we're talking about healing that goes beyond the surface, about self-trust, sovereignty, and the courage to fully be seen after pain tried to silence you. This is Passion from Pain, and I am so honored to welcome Dr. Lisha Antiqua to the stage. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you here.
Amy, thank you so much for having me. I was like, wow, I did all of that.
Right?
I appreciate the reminder. And everybody for listening to this segment. I hope to just give you a ton of inspiration and help light that fire of individuality, no matter what you've been through this segment with Amy, and just let you know that your message matters and your passion can come from your pain, and learning passion is something that we get to do, especially if you didn't get to experience it.
Absolutely. I love it. And one of the things that I'm really excited about and what drew me to wanting you to be on here to speak with everybody is the fact that, you come from your own trials, tribulations, pain that brought you to this position where you decided to, go for your degree and get the education and pursue this path where you are helping others, and especially women, transform their lives after very similar situations that I talk about here on the show.
Yeah. So I did. Yeah. And I do. And really, at first, it was about survival for me.
Yeah.
Both in my adolescence, just sitting around, and my dog is really like me.
I love it.
It's like, "I wanna be on your lap."
Uh-huh. I love it. I love it.
It's that PTSD, you know? So but I remember being in, like, 7th grade, right? And I had just turned one of my abusers, my sexual abusers, um, in, and we were beginning that process of going to court and going to therapy and going to group therapy and
Mhm.
being told all the things, and I wasn't the girl that was silent. I was the girl that went to the sleepovers and began that conversation, over truth and dare, and began talking about how mom treats dad and how dad treats mom and
Mhm.
what abuse is in their lives, and I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, I was just talking about basically the only thing I could, which is I was having trouble grappling with just what was happening in my family and learning about myself and what was sexual abuse and what did it mean about me and CPTSD. And at the moment, I was just beginning to experience flashbacks, and that was a way that I coped through it. So I have been helping people speak their truth and recognize their stories and recognize abuse my entire life. So it's kind of born into it.
Mhm.
I joke about that. And like, I was born into it.
Mhm.
I went through the abuse first, and then I got to talk about it. And then at 21, I got cancer, and it was cervical cancer, ovarian stuff happening, the cysts happening, all of that, adenomyosis, endometriosis, the whole bit that really comes from
Mhm.
when we're sexually abused or hurt in that way. So common, so often. I'm definitely not alone in that. Um, but that really threw me from a place of where I could have been just I could have gone wild. I was a party girl. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, so I was a party girl,
Mhm.
and I could have really gone down the party and addiction
Yeah.
pathway, but because I was also really into holistic health and wellness, at that moment in time, I just went into wellness. I went into natural medicine. I went into being a vegan. I'm not anymore, but I did for a moment, and my health and my well-being, and that's when I actually began learning how much our trauma affects our body and our health and our well-being and how the body keeps the score before the book was popular,
Mhm.
and and what healing meant. And so anyway, that's a little bit about some of my pain and some of
Mhm.
what I went through, and you can ask me anything that you wanna know. I'm definitely an open book, and there's books about it.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for sharing that because, I do think that, it's important for especially the listeners of this audience to understand that, there's so many other people have, been in the exact same position that they are. And that's one of the purposes of this podcast is to highlight that and the fact that, there is life after these circumstances or events, or traumatic events. And you do have, that choice like you made. You could have gone the route of being the party girl or going down addiction, and just burying your pain in substance and cheap escapes, but instead you chose the route of the holistic side and the education side. And I really admire you for doing that because that did take a lot of strength. You say, hey, I'm not going to go that route. It's often the easier route because it drowns out what is going on in our heads in those moments.
Yeah. I dabbled, but yeah, and I think part of it is just my personality type,
Hmm.
and another part of it is that it was okay for me to talk about it and
Yeah.
express what was happening. I never wasn't vocal about it once it came
Hmm.
out, right? I used it as a iron over my mother's head to get freedom. I was I used it to speak out, I used it to do things, but really understanding how much it affected my body.
Hmm.
Then I did, marry into just a loveless marriage and went through that kind of narcissistic um, CPTSD relationship where I was super empathic, took on everything myself, did all the self blaming, went through that emotional and mental anguish too
Sure.
after that physical cancer, which was super painful. And at the same time, needed to happen in order for me to realize, oh, I'm not my body. I'm not my mind either, right? My mind doesn't have it all made up. And that's a shit skizzle. So some people do that through drugs and alcohol or addiction of some sort. I did it in relationships. So, you know,
Mhm.
we're going to get the lesson no matter how we go through it, Amy, right?
I can think of right and think you're right.
We're
Exactly.
gonna get it. There's no ego here when it comes to pain.
It's so true. It's so true. So what was the moment you realized that your story wasn't something to hide from? It was something to really build and teach through.
For me, that happens as I was led through, and I'll say God did this, and my ears start ringing as I say this, but,
Yeah.
I feel like my soul or God or some supernatural piece of me forced me into really teaching, and it came through yoga. So at first, when I did have the cancer, I got through that bit, and then I had adrenal failure at 24. So I was 21. At 24, I had adrenal failure based on something that happened when I was 11. I had a near-death experience that was horrific and could trigger people if I told you about it, but it was pretty horrific, and it got me in that place where I thought I was gonna die and locked me in fight, flight, or freeze and locked my adrenals down, and so I was just running on adrenaline for about 12 years.
Wow.
And in that, I found through my cancer, I found neural emotional reflex integration, which is a combination of NOT, neural emotional technique. It's a chiropractic treatment, and a
Mhm.
neural um, organization technique, and ET and NOT is what they call them for short.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of that. And what it does is it resets your gravity reflex system. It resets your body.
Mhm.
And in that, I finally went, oh, I'm okay. But before I found that, or as I was finding that resetting my adrenals, I found Bikram yoga. And I had already been teaching yoga. My family grew up around yoga. I'd been doing yoga since I was about 4. Um, but I found Bikram yoga. I went to that hot yoga. I got certified in it and I began teaching it. And at that moment is when I recognized that a lot of people were out of their body and what disassociation looked like and how we weren't really aware of our own essences in our bodies,
Mhm.
and that was important. And over time, as I helped people get into their body, their traumas just kept coming up. And
Mm.
because of my history and the fact that I don't really budge, like people can tell me that they were raped and hurt and all this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, yeah. They can tell me I've been on a ton of drugs or I lived here and there. And I'm just like, oh, that sucks. Like, yeah, yeah. Right.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just don't have it that judgment or whatever that is. I don't
Yeah.
have that in me. I also don't hold on to it. And so I think it was just a safe space
Mhm.
for people to just tell their stuff to. And I was their yoga and nutrition teacher. So they just started telling me their stories. And in 2010, I was like, I'm going to learn how to coach this. I need to learn what I'm doing. And I told my mom in 2012 or 2013, I was like, I don't need to go back to college to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so I went to another coaching certification program, and so that was like my 3rd one or 2nd one, besides my teaching certifications. And through all of that, I really realized like, wow, I don't really know what I'm doing. Just because I went through the trauma doesn't mean I actually know how to hold space for somebody. And because trauma is trauma and it's in the past, coaching is fantastic and I love it because it helps me help people move forward.
Mhm.
And I train coaches to help people move forward. But coaching doesn't usually have an aspect of how do you actually look at the past
Mhm.
and make that. safe place. And because I wanted people to be in their bodies and aware and move through the stuff that they were going through,
Mhm.
that led to me just seeing them in a more holistic way
Mhm.
and helping them get to know themselves. I think I answered your
You did.
question.
You did very beautifully, I might add. No, that was perfect. And I love the way that you described the difference, really between coaching as being able to move you forward. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It really doesn't train you to look at the past and help somebody deal with the past situations. And so the fact that you recognized that and decided that, okay, you needed to address that um hole, I guess, in order to move forward with exactly what you wanted to do to help people, was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And so out of all of this, you created the amazing you method and the reclaim intimacy, which are two separate systems that I think integrate the mind, body, emotions, and soul, if I remember right. What do the approaches look like, I guess, in action, and what's makes them different from traditional therapies?
So traditional therapies really focus on the trauma, right? If you're going to trauma therapy, let's just talk about trauma therapy
Yeah.
because there's a ton of different therapies. But when we
Mhm.
go through a trauma, that creates PTSD, sometimes depression, sometimes anxiety,
Yeah.
sometimes borderline, sometimes narcissistic tendencies, sometimes eating disorders, sexual dysfunction, right? Addiction, huge trauma causes. So, trauma is the basis of all of these symptomologies, all of these diagnoses, right?
Mhm.
Within the psychological frameworks. And so, most of the time within psychology, we're treating either the symptom, right? And not the trauma. Or if you get into it and you're finally doing work, right? You're treating the trauma. However, there's nothing wrong with the trauma. The trauma friggin' happened.
Yeah.
It sucks. We can treat it all you want. It's not going to go away. But what I found that trauma does and through the yoga and watching people do yoga and watching people learn how to take care of themselves, watching people learn how to, through meditation, work their mind and understand their mind, and then working with people in their emotional states and working with people in their magnetic fields is and helping them own it and understand energy work and the same thing. And we can call it soul, but I think soul is even the next level up. When I talk about soul psychology, I'm talking about the next level up. But trauma puts all of that kind of in a shaky environment. And what I call the ego, your physical, mental, emotional, and etheric field, these bodies of ours, it shakes it up. And this ego takes over to protect our essence, to protect our life force. And the life force, which is our super consciousness, really can jump out of you. And then you have periods of disassociation or you have flashbacks. And if you've ever had a flashback, you know that you travel through time, that there is no space and time. Like you can be a 2-year-old and not split personality, not DID, nothing like that. Just like, oh my gosh, what just happened there? You can be the 4-year-old screaming at somebody and be like throwing a fit. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm 45, right? And I don't even act like that. That was ridiculous. Right? And so what I do and what the programs I work with is we work with the whole person. And so transpersonal means we work with the soul level. We see things as supernatural. So that acid trip that you had, or the MDMA trip that you had, or too much blow you did one night,
Right.
like that, and those supernatural experiences, or prayer and deep prayer and
Mhm.
PTSD, all those experiences we take into account, right? Has like a healing modality and a part of what really is going to help you step into you.
Yeah.
And then in Amazing You, what we do is, yeah, the trauma comes up, right? I needed to know how to help people work through the trauma, realize that they survived the trauma, What are they gonna do now with it? What meaning are they allowing it to make in their lives? Who do they need to cut cords with or deal with to do that? What does that look like? Like, we need to be able to look through all that. So the trauma-informed care is really, really important and being able to hold space. But what's more important than dealing with the trauma and what happened to you is the fact that you survived. And the parts of you that survive, like, how are you gonna take care of them? And how do you know that you're not them? You're not your body. If your arm gets cut off tomorrow, you're still you. You're not your mind. If you get a brain injury, right, and you lose part of your memory, you're still you. There's still an essence within you. That is Amy, right?
Yeah.
We know this. If you have an emotional breakdown, right, it doesn't make you any less you. You can have sad emotions, happy emotions, like, none of this stuff is you. And no matter the circumstances in your life, what you attract into your life, what you give authority into your life, they're not you either. This is what the electromagnetic field is, which we're learning more about because of 5G and technology and, all these stuffs, like, it's proving that we are electromagnetic fields, but we are electromagnetic, and you have an essence around you that is yours. And when you realize that you're even more than that, and I call it soul psychology, that's what we get in Amazing You prepared, right? So we get peace back in the essence of you. How do you wanna take care of your body? Some people wanna smoke cigarettes all day and and sit around, and they have a great life for it. We know 80-year-olds, 100-year-olds, right, that are still having their cigarette and drinking their little bourbon and all, in moderation, and it's the attitude around that. It's like, in this choice, and I just kept seeing, like, "Oh, okay, how can we actually do this?" So I help people choose themselves,
Beautiful.
basically,
I love that.
instead of other people choosing them, and that's what the Amazing You system is about. We look at each of these power zones of places that we actually have power in our lives, and we can give those powers away. The powers can be taken from trauma or abuse or anything, right? Like, the powers can be lost for a moment. We can turn off the light.
Yeah.
But how do we turn back on the lights? How do we reclaim the throne in our own lives? And then how do we take that out into the world in relationship? How do we take that out into the world in our purpose? And we figure that out. That's Amazing You.
I
And
love
then yeah, thank you. And then reclaim intimacy is adopting a lot of that, because in Amazing You, you have an into me to see, right? So the intimacy is there. Before you have an into me to see, when you are a nothing or a no one, and through my dissertation, I really discovered that, especially sexual abuse, but a lot of abuse, and especially childhood abuse in general, we don't have an into me.
Yeah.
We're what everybody else wants. We're the toxic empath. We are giving to everybody. We are the people pleaser, right? We like whatever he wants, whatever she wants, or depending if you're male or female. And that's just this lockdown that we get into. So a lot of my students, I get to help them find themselves first. And many are from childhood abuse where they didn't have that option to discover themselves as children. If you did get that option as children, it's a lot easier to actually reclaim yourself, because you have an idea that there's a lot that people don't know that they don't know. But once you have that into me to see, once you have a sense of me and self, then how do you reclaim your sexuality? And for me, my first essay experience, from what we can piece together, is about 18 months old. And so,
Wow.
it wasn't continuous, thank God. There were some really horrific parts, and then there was good. I wasn't trafficked. I didn't, wasn't locked any place. I've worked with many people with much worse stories, thank God. But for my nervous system and for myself, like, it's still like, what is sensuality? What is sexuality for me? What is safe for me? I still shut down sometimes, right? I have to be very careful to protect myself in that space around me and who I'm with. And and so in that essence, I was like, I need to come up with something where it's not like learn how to give a good job, but or something like that, right? That's to learn about sex, right? Um, or how to have, set a boundary like this, but how do we bring it all together? And like,
Mm,
what is my own expression of it? And so I had some really great teachers that I brought together a whole bunch of stuff. I started studying orgasm in my 20s, and that continued. And then in my PhD program, I couldn't prove that there was a soul because I wanted to do how trauma affects the soul. But I could prove that sexual abuse is one of the only abuses that actually blows out all the systems because it is physical, it is mental, it is emotional, and it is spiritual. It shares an energetic tie. And it's relationship based. And it's also a lot of our purposes, right? Or to be a mom, to be this, it's generational. We've had this stigma. And so we switched it at the board because I couldn't prove that there was a soul. I was like, but I think I could do this. They said, go for it. Go change your chapter one. And so I went
mhm,
back and I had to change like 3 words in my chapter one, which is the chapter that you hand to the board to say, can I do this research? And that's how Reclaim Intimacy became a treatment plan and came together.
mm,
And what it does is it helps you own yourself. It helps you reclaim and explore your own sexual preferences and sexuality and joy. It helps you learn about boundaries and sexual boundaries specifically, not just relationship boundaries, but really about sex. Learn how to talk about sex because we're not allowed to say the word, right? And
right.
yet it's everything, it's everywhere.
Mhm,
And how to make peace with it. And then from there, you can go and share it with, like, I work with a lot of couples. You can share it with your partner. They can do their own blueprint. And you leave with a blueprint. And you know what you like, what you don't. You know your kinks, your non-kinks. You know
mhm,
your your what all this stuff. And it's just not that's not talked about when it comes to healing from sexual abuse. The sexual abuse is what happened is right
yep,
and for you to get through all of that, but that's replaying the past,
mm,
which, as we know from quantum physics and quantum mechanics, is like that just retrains the nervous system to accept more of that.
right.
We wanna move on into that forward thinking, that positive, psychology piece. So that's Reclaim Intimacy. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, no, this is why you're here, is to share this information with the audience and, with those that are overcoming after an SA experience. They are out in the audience as well. And they're listening to this for this specific reason. They're looking to essentially overcome themselves and their traumas and all of that in the aftermath of it, and looking for a way out and a path forward. And so yeah, no, that's what this is all about, so I appreciate you sharing all of that.
Awesome. Yeah, if you wanna know any deeper pieces of it, if you know that they're experiencing something or a place that they are, because I really think that so many places say, "Oh, well, we can help you out of the situation," which that system's broken, right? We can help you talk about it if you can talk about it, which is important, right?
Yep.
Um, but very few people say, "Okay, let's rebuild,"
Yeah.
right? Let's teach you what you don't know yet, from finances to wealth mentality to
Mm.
mindset work to how to eat, how to prepare moods that you're worthy, where your emotions are, right? We're not taught any of that, not even in school, nobody is.
No. Right.
So I think
Yeah.
people need to go through whether they've had abuse or not, but
Right.
for me, it was a game changer in my entire life, and it wasn't
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah, and one of the things that I really love that you're doing, and I'm noticing it start to creep into the psychology conversation more and more, and that is the spiritual side of, you know, everything. Um, it was often kind of dismissed, at least in a lot of what I read when I was going through my process of, you know, overcoming myself and learning everything I needed to learn to do that. But the spiritual was often just dismissed, and it was very science based, and what you could prove, like you when you went to turn in your paper, like, well, you can't prove that there's a soul. So they made you take
Mhm.
that piece out of it. But, I do love that you're integrating that back into your actual work, and you kind of didn't allow them to, you know, dismiss that side of it, in your practice.
Yeah. I was very fortunate that at Gateway University, I get to it is transpersonal, right? So
Mm.
they were accepting of it, but still in the dissertation,
Yeah,
if you're gonna fight, you're gonna follow the guidelines of, every institution,
yeah.
you have to be able to prove every piece of it, right? And really back up every piece of what you're saying. And I was like, without so much research and a billion clients doing regressions or something, like, how am I going to prove that there's a soul? I couldn't find any literature on it, like proving it, right? So I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I was hoping they'd give me another answer, but they're like, they were like, you could do this, you could just quote books, you could just do this. But then I said, what if I did this? And they said, I think that's going to get your point across. But it definitely changed my research. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and like I just love that you put that you integrate it into, your teaching and your healing practices, because it is an important piece, a huge piece of the puzzle to move forward, is addressing the spiritual side of it,
yeah.
because without that, it's really difficult to move forward.
It is.
So,
Yeah. It's that connection, that
mhm,
belonging, that authority,
yeah.
and just the essence of our own consciousness behind our thoughts, the witness behind our thoughts, the feeler behind the feels.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And many survivors, they struggle with, you know, kind of reclaiming that intimacy, and not just sexually, but just intimacy in general, not physically, but emotionally and spiritually. How do you help people open their hearts again after the trauma kind of made them close it off? It is a protection mechanism, essentially, because that's what happens.
Well, first realizing that it's really our egos edging God out. It's really our physical, mental, and emotional fear based reality, right? That's those pieces are they can leave. They can they can exit the premises and then there is that relationship with a higher power. All right,
Yeah.
that's important. Like how can we trust somebody or something
Mhm.
that let this happen to us? How can we let our guard down again? So there's a couple components to it. The first is really making peace with your body, mind, and emotions. So there's that intimacy. And the next piece is to take authority back in your life, which can be setting boundaries, but not like a fierce authority, just like, no, I don't have to listen to that person. I can trust myself. I can trust myself to think about this, to make decisions for myself, to
Mhm.
choose what I want. I can trust myself if I go through something else that's, I'm not like, hey, come abuse me, come hurt me again, please. Like, but I know I can get through it this time. I know I can reach out for help. I know that I'm not alone. Right. So
Mhm.
there's those components to it. But the biggest piece is truly being able to say, you know what, I don't have to look or be like they want me to be or that way, right? Like, like your background in the steampunk
Mhm.
and everything, right? There's a uniqueness to heal that we all have. Like I have my angel feathers, so
Yep.
everything's fine, right? Like, like there's a uniqueness that is in expression that that we all have, and it's about allowing yourself permission to find that and not make any of it wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And like I said, some super eccentric people, like, sit around, smoke their entire lives, and,
Mhm. Oh,
like, are just awesome and live forever.
yeah.
Other people are wrapped up in the mindset of, like, this is bad, or they've wanted to quit forever, and they've just never quit, so they're constantly in that disappointing of themselves mentality, trying to change, trying to fix, and I think our world is built on this, trying to change, trying to fix, and that's actually what makes us sick.
Yeah, I couldn't
My
agree more. I couldn't agree more. It's and you brought up the hat and and everything. I love it.
I love it.
Well, and I'll tell you a fun little story about it. I got this hat because it, was kind of like a tribute or a homage or homage or whatever that word is. Yeah, I don't know if I said that right, but paying respects to the fact that rock and roll played a huge part in my healing process. Going to the concerts and feeling the energy of the guitars and the drums and the gut growling of the singers and, the lyrics and how they spoke to me and everything. And that I've just been a huge fan of it since I was about 15 years old. And, I ended up seeing the hat online and I'm like, oh, I love that. It totally reminds me of some of my favorite singers and guitarists and whatnot. And so I got it and decided, okay, I'm going to just start wearing this every day. And I did. Um, and I don't know, I ended up getting a little self-conscious about it and I quit wearing it. And it was a YouTuber that I was interviewing and I wasn't wearing it. And he's like, where's the hat? What happened to the hat? And I'm like, yeah, I put it away for a little bit. He's like, no, don't do that. That is so you. That is just, your energy. That is so authentic. Lean into it. I don't know who told you or got into your head that you need to put it away, but don't ever do that again. Just stop it. So I kind of got a little scolded for, kind of questioning myself and this whole, vibe look thing that I was going for. And I was like, yeah, you know what? He's right. Why did I do that? Why did I let other people get in my head like that? But it just goes to show that, no matter how far along you are or think you are, and how far you've evolved on your journey after overcoming trauma, you still are very susceptible to what other people think or what you think other people are thinking about you. Um,
And the
and
thing is, we're able to recognize that, right? As soon as we're able to, like, it just happened to me. It just happened to me, like, over my 50th birthday. It just happened to me. And I was like, it was about a week after the, so-called betrayal trauma, whatever. And I was like, oh, here I am again. How can I use this to learn? How can I grow from this? How can I help me embody who I am called to be, who I desire to be even more?
yeah.
Right? And what does that look like?
Mhm.
And what if natural and kind of hippie-esque and what if that's fine? Right? What if that is multi-million dollar? What if that is elegant? What if that is authentic? What if that is, right? And so, like, I thought about, oh, yesterday and today doing interviews, I was like, oh, makeup and this, that. And I was just like, no,
Yeah.
no, this is it. I'm talking about your own university. I'm talking about authenticity. Right.
Yeah.
I love playing around with pictures and AI and photo shoots and makeup. But in my everyday life,
Mhm.
right? When I'm just being me, when going out, when I'm doing things, like, this is who you get, and so this is how I'm choosing today
Yeah.
to show up and just be,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the confidence. I have a intro program that really helps you connect with your soul calling and tell your story and where you're at if you're rebuilding your life right now, right? We start with amazing you or reclaim intimacy, like, depending on where you're at in that
Yeah.
journey. And if you're really going, gosh, I have a message to say. I want to do a podcast. I want to do a book. I want to do this. I want to do that, right? You step into that message, you realize that you're there. And so if you're in your message stage and your brain's still telling you that you need to be rebuilding and changing and all of this stuff, but all you really need to do is put back on your steampunk hat,
Yep.
right? And I'm owning this, then you need, like, that. And then the other stage is an architect. And are you an architect that's still like, well, I need to figure out my message. I need to, like, say what I'm going to say. But you've been saying the same thing for 10 years. And because the world hasn't listened, all of a sudden, like, you need to change your message again. You need to wait to write your book. You need to wait to do something. No, like, let's build your empire. Let's do this. Because I feel like trauma separates us from the soul and our soul calling, right? And it
Mm.
kind of gets us off track. And my purpose in life is to help you re-embody your vessel, right? Find that and then build your empire. Right? However that looks. Some of my friends are literally living off of grid in the middle of Alaska. Stop pushing it, Arden. In the middle of Alaska, um, you know, cutting wood and stoking the fires to heat their house. Like some of my best friends live out there like that. And others live in the middle of New York City, right? And are figuring out how to create a hydroponic world. It's probably not hydroponic. I probably shouldn't have said that. She'll like kick my butt next. Nah, but work with plant medicine and holotropic minerals and plants and everything to create sustainable living in the middle of a city.
Yeah.
Right. And what that looks like to very different purposes. Right. One might be going out there and sharing their story with the world. Another one might be just silently making sure that their kids are loved and happy. Nobody knows about it, right? But when you're living your authentic voice, like nothing can hurt it and nothing stops that faster than a trauma. Can be financial, could be relationship, could be sexual, could be a story that you got going on in your head. And it doesn't matter what that breaking point is. But I think that those breaking points, if we don't focus on the breaking point and we don't go into therapy for 800 years, a couple years maybe, but anything over 3 years and the average is 10, okay? Anything over 3 years in the therapy talking about the same thing, and you go in each week and you're just looking for that next thing that happened and how you're backing up what happened to you and how you're experiencing it again, and you're just looking at the negativity. It's time to reprogram your mind. It's time to reprogram your nervous system. It's time to use some of these new techniques to step into your purpose, because life needs us all.
Yeah.
Right? Life needs us all to be like, here, living our purpose. And so that's my mission, is to help people find and say, okay, I'm done rebuilding. Oh, yes, my message. What do I want to do? And 3, how do I want to orchestrate it? How do I want to step out into the world? And I've been blessed to be able to help many people do that and see that, celebrate them.
Well, and I love that, too, that whatever that message is, or that authentic piece of you is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to grab a microphone and do a podcast or get on a stage and share this, like you were saying, that friend that you have in Alaska. And I've got a lot who or a few friends that live off grid, and that is what they want to do, and how that's what they love. And same, they're pouring their energy into their children, but that is what they've decided is their authentic purpose, is to pour into those kids, who are then going to go out into the world and provide something great to the world. And so that is still a very authentic purpose. Even a lot of people want to kind of scoff at something like that, but no, that's a very real purpose that has a very real meaning to the rest of society too.
It was many years ago that I was doing an interview series, probably like 2012, or maybe it was like 2014, 2015. I had this podcast called Shine at the time. It's no longer there, but it was called Shine. And I interviewed all these people about how they're shining in the world. And I interviewed this guy, he had done all this beautiful stuff, right? All this beautiful stuff I thought I was going to hear about. And he gets online and I said, so what is your sole purpose? Tell us all about it. And I thought that I was going to hear on accolades. He's like, well, if I wake up every single day and I get on the, what is it called in New York City? The train.
Oh, subway?
The subway. Yes.
Yeah.
I get on the subway and I smile at everybody and they smile back. I've done my soul's purpose. And I said, what about all this stuff? She goes, oh, that's just work. That's just work.
Wow.
Like, I just stumbled onto that. Like that just kind of happened to me. And we didn't even talk about that. We literally talked about the power of your smile.
Wow. For
an entire hour. And it was the most beautiful, eye-opening thing. I'm like, oh my gosh. You don't have to be doing this. Like, it can be, your purpose can be smiling. There's this guy here in St. Pete. His name is Joe. Anyway, it was a church with me and everything. And one of the first people I met is carrying around this staff. But anyway, he just screams, "I love you." And he's known as the I love you guy. And at drum circles and in church, like I love you. And everybody screams, I love you.
Okay.
And it's so friggin' cool, right? That's his purpose. That's what he does.
Yeah.
'Cause he spreads this love and this message of screaming, I love you, when most people just wouldn't do it, right? But it gets everybody, wherever he is, like into this mode. And I just have huge respect for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it just goes to show that it doesn't have to be this huge empire or business structure that you're building. I mean, that's not necessarily what, purpose is. And if that's, what it is for you, great, and you have the wherewithal to put that together, awesome. But yeah, it doesn't have to be this huge grand production, of purpose. It can be very small, and simple, like just smiling and getting a smile back, or telling others that you love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that helps your soul
Yeah.
feel alive, right?
Hmm.
It's a thing that helps your soul feel alive. And trauma deters us, like it gets us off track from that and it separates us, the true us, the us that is your soul, this is your divinity, from the vessel of your expression. And and then we look at the vessel, right? If we're not looking at the trauma, then we look at the vessel for that expression and where it is, when really, from my understanding of it, and I've spent many years kind of in isolation and just coming out of my shell to do this. I mean, I've been online and everything, but
Sure.
like a lot of isolation to say, what
Hmm.
does my soul say?
Hmm.
Right. And learning how to listen to that witness part of you and follow directions from yourself,
Hmm.
right? And not blame God, not
Yeah.
blame others, not blame the past, not blame even the future, is what brings, I think, whatever that purpose is for each of us,
Yeah.
just naturally into the world.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't know. I'm loving this conversation. I think it's great. And so in your practice, you train healers, you know, to do all of this. So how do you prepare coaches and therapists to hold space for trauma that's in a way that's kind of soul led and safe?
So we do a lot of different practices that are really common. So in our holistic coaching certification program, you get to learn things like EFT, which is really popular, the tapping technique, right?
Mhm.
That's a really great way to move energy, move that cellular energy through the body as people are experiencing something. We learn vagus nerve resets and a lot of somatic practices based in yoga and movement and vagus nerve resets for the physical body. We work with nutrition, which is amazing. What we eat has a big impact on your mental health. But we also do light hypnosis. I teach a meditation, how people can lead people back into their soul essence. We call it soul seeding. Once people feel comfortable in their own bodies, taking care of their bodies, kind of train yourself to trust yourself again, right? And no longer looking for other people to trust to show you the way. You start showing yourself the way. And it takes about 6 months in my typical trainings with people that have gone through a lot of trauma,
Mhm.
people I usually had worked with. And so it takes about 6 months, and then you just invite yourself back to yourself, right?
Mm.
You invite your soul back home and it hasn't left. It's just like being protected by your ego body,
Mhm.
and you switch the roles. And so I train the coaches to hold space. We do work with emotional intelligence, which is kind of tricky. But when people are sad, you can move them up the frequencies, up the scale. So we work with that. It's an ongoing learning experience depending on the person you're working with.
Mhm.
And then a lot of education goes into how do you ask questions? How do you hold space, right?
Mhm.
how do you hold space for the trauma when the trauma comes up without shoving it away or making it wrong, which a lot of people do, or not talking about it or not addressing it, but at the same time, not giving power to it.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody tells me, "Oh, this is coming up and I'm going through this." And I was just like, "I can't do it." I'm like, "Great. Do you want to talk about it?" "No, I don't want to." "Okay, cool." Right? Or, "Yes, I totally want to talk about blah, 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 blah," right? Or I'm like, "Well, when you're ready, we can deal with it." But a lot of hypnosis, we do a lot of hypnosis too. Just really walking people back into the safety of their own nervous system and working with their nervous system, working with their chakra systems, the nerve bundles going up their spine is another name for those 7 major points in the body. And, um, and so each power zone, as I call them, we kinda learn how to coach in a different way, and the coaching is looking forward, and the trauma information or trauma informed is how do you hold space for that past when it comes up? How do you validate that past when it comes up? How do you help your clients validate that past when it comes up?
Yeah.
And then what tools do you need to take care of it?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, things that are happening physically aren't physical at all, they're emotional. And a lot of times, things that are happening mentally aren't mental at all. They're from your etheric field. They're somebody else's stuff, or you've given authority over to somebody, or giving your energy to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes you're giving your energy to somebody else because it's a belief system that you have, and or you're feeling feelings because your physical body is going through something. And so I look at everybody in a holistic way in that way. And I'm blessed. Like my mom's a chiropractor, and I grew up around different holistic practices and therapies that made me just open up to a lot more knowledge than I actually went to school for. I don't do those practices, but
Very
I could pull from that wisdom and be like, "Hey, maybe you need to go get some roll thing or
right.
go get this done."
Well, I think that's what makes you, a good coach and educator is knowing where to send people for the correct information, and the correct healing modality. Not
Yeah.
necessarily certified in it, but hey, I know a guy.
I
I know
know
a
a
guy.
guy, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know a guy. I know a guy. I got
And
you.
there's a time and place, like I said, like in traditional therapy, right? Where a diagnosis might be really eye-opening for somebody to be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's what's happening," right?
Yeah.
But then when we identify as that and that gets us attention, and
Mhm.
then we're on, you know, drugs for life, and we're told we're always gonna be like this and that this is something broken, that's where I go, no," because trauma effectively is an injury, right? And a lot of people that have that trauma just have object identity.
Mhm.
And when they're no longer an object, when they're no longer a thing, when they're no longer a piece of meat, when they're no longer whatever that is, right? That they were told, um, and they reaffirm their own identity, right? They reclaim it from that objectification. That's that's when people heal. That's
Mhm.
when miracles happen. That's when their worth goes up. That's when money starts coming in. That's when we get out of survival mode. And so that's what I do both.
Yeah, and
Every
oftentimes they're discovering who that person is for the very first time. Yeah,
Mhm.
not just rediscovering, but holy crap, this is
They're
who I
creating it.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you create it. That's the whole thing, that you don't have somebody to remember, like I didn't have somebody to remember, right? Oh, you can create this.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's that element. It's the element of creation. So the coaches at your own university learn how to help people create themselves
Mhm.
without putting their input into it, right?
Yeah.
And same with I only train therapists in the reclaim intimacy field. Like you got to be in school, and I love going in and teaching that methodology to practitioners.
Mhm.
I do it mainly in groups for that, and then I work one-on-one with people for that element right now because yeah, coaching is just interesting when especially when you're dealing directly with SA. But
Mm.
I love coaching people through both of those
Mhm.
individually too.
Yeah.
Fun,
Yeah.
rewarding.
You know, and a lot of the is it healing methods, therapies, or processes that you've talked about, these are things that take a lot of time, essentially. I mean, they're not quick fixes. But how do you deal with that misunderstanding or that expectation when you've got somebody that is like, I need this quick fix. We live in that quick fix culture, essentially. How do you deal with somebody who's expecting that with this kind of
Amy, I would say it's the opposite when
really?
it comes to trauma. Yeah. I have experienced that most people that are in therapy or have been dealing with trauma really hang on to the identity. This is going to take forever to heal.
Yeah. Okay.
And the hardest part is if you can let go of that being your identity, right?
Mhm.
If you can let go of that identity in order to create a new identity, it can happen really, really, really quick. And a lot of that happens through validation. So is it a quick fix in the sense that it will never come up again? And ever, ever, ever. And if it does, then you're not fixed. No. But once you learn that you're healing and we're living in a secular world, right? And that the next time that it comes up, you're looking down upon it, right? You're one ring up and you have tapping tools, or now you can stick on an
Mhm.
EFT thing, or now you can regulate your vagus nerve. Now you know the breathing technique that works for you. Now you know to go make that appointment with that particular modality, right? That your body, your mind responds to. You have your blueprint. You have that essential blueprint from the
Mhm.
amazing methodology. Then that gives you power, right? And so is it a quick fix?
Mhm.
Sometimes it is, right? People have said probably one of the biggest testimonials I get is I spent so many years, 10, 12 years in therapy, and in 3 months I got more from Dr. Lisha than I ever did from them. And in 3 months, we've only done the body and the mind.
Mhm.
We're not even to the emotions at the and the etheric field. So, like, by the time they get done, they're completely them, right? Not a new person, but a whole person.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and it's just happened again and again and again and again and again. So,
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. I love it. And
so what if you could heal really fast? What if there is a quick fix?
oh wow, that would be cool. Just snap your fingers and it's all done and over. That would be really cool. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. We don't work that way. Partly, I think, because we're
But it's
stuck.
cyclical, right? So you're never gonna go through
Yeah.
the same thing, and if you're not shocked by it
Mhm.
anymore, right?
Yeah.
If you can open up, I think we talked about the open up the closet door,
Mhm.
right? And you're not afraid to pick out whatever's coming up. I'm not afraid
Mhm.
of what happened when I was 11. I'm not afraid of what happened when I was a kid. I'm not afraid of what happened last week. I'm not afraid of that anymore. I'm not ashamed to look at it. I'm like, oh, it sucks. It
Mhm.
hurts. What would life be like if it didn't happen? Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know what life would be like if it didn't happen. And that happening gave me all these experiences. And now I help other people
Mhm.
recover as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And well, and you gotta think, gosh, I don't know, would y- living in your purpose and doing incredible things, man, would you really want it any other way at this point? I don't know. Maybe.
I might be a billionaire. I'll be able to do it, right? A few more resources, right? A few more resources, I wouldn't mind. I can, like, pour out generosity.
There you go. So so many women recover. What is the most rewarding transformation that you've witnessed through your work?
It's not just one, but I have to say there's been so much CPTSD or people that have been diagnosed with borderline
Yeah.
or, bipolar, and they all look so similar, those 3 things, and to see the clutches of that essentially go away and them no longer be controlled by it or limited by it or hide from work or hide from their purpose or hide from their kids or hide from buying a house. So one particular client, she was diagnosed with with um with bipolar,
Mhm.
And so what we did is we developed a plan to like handle her bipolar and her swings and everything like that. And she went through the Amazing You methodology. Well, then in the midst of the Amazing You methodology and everything, she was told that she could not really hold down a job, but she was like, you know what, I'm just going to get a job. And she was told that she couldn't buy a house. And she's like, oh, guess what? I think I manifested a house. And right. And she started working her energy
Mhm.
field and everything, and then she went back and they were like, "Oh, well, you don't have bipolar anymore. So now we think that you're borderline." And she comes back and she's like, "They're trying to tell me I'm borderline." Like, "Okay, what do you think? Like, what do you think? Right? Are you going to give yourself that diagnosis?
Yeah.
Like what do you think?" She's like, "Well, that doesn't really make sense either." And I'm like, "No, so it's really how are you going to handle yourself when you have triggers that come up?
Mhm.
Or how are you gonna handle yourself when you have extra energy, right?
Mhm.
And and are you gonna listen to other people when they say, "Hey, like, you might have lost touch with reality," and you and be able to, like, pull yourself back down from reality a little bit and take responsibility for it rather than hiding from it or making yourself wrong for it, right? Because when you go and you rearrange the entire house because you're having a manic episode or you buy a whole bunch of things or any of the things that typically happen, right?
Yeah.
They're not necessarily being violent and for my clients, then once you realize that, you can go, "Oh, I'm into extra energy. How do I wanna feed this energy?" Right? You
Yeah.
no longer let it control you, then you're no longer controlled by it. Hey, and it was all a trauma response from her, and once she worked through that, she didn't have the swings anymore. So that is probably one of my favorite things, and she owns a house, and she got what she wanted, and she has had a great job, and I just saw last week she's kind of traveling around the world and doing her thing with her family. So
Very cool. Very cool. I love those kind of stories. I love it. So, what do you want every survivor listening right now to know, especially the one who's, still feeling like they're unworthy of healing or, incapable of overcoming the trauma from life?
one, you matter, and two, stop focusing on the trauma and discover and train your brain on gratitude.
Mm, beautiful. I love it. I love it. This has been such a wonderful conversation today. I love everything that you're doing and how you're helping people, and I think you're making some great headway, in this arena for sure.
Thank you, Amy. Like, this is
Mhm.
super fun.
So I
I've
started
never thought about food.
I started like a new little segment called Rapid Fire. If you want to play, we can. But basically, I will start a sentence and I'll let you finish it. You wanna try that?
Let's try it.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna start here, and I'll just say the first few of a sentence, and then yeah, you finish it however your heart, whatever your heart says to say. Just throw it out. Okay, there we go. All right. Healing feels like
Bliss.
the body remembers.
Everything.
Mm, my greatest teacher was.
My pussy.
I love that
I
answer.
see. She what is
Forgiveness is,
freedom,
and power looks like.
confidence,
I love that. Intimacy begins with,
me,
and the one thing I had to unlearn was.
all of me.
Wow.
Yeah, who I thought I was. Yeah.
Wow.
How
That
do I
was
say
a
that?
wonderful answer. I had to
How would I
unlearn
say that?
everything. Learn everything. So did I. I did too. It really, I figured out that I had it all wrong and I had to unlearn everything to relearn or to educate myself about me, not to relearn because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to
Just say, right.
choose. Right? I've had to choose. Choose, choose, choose. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being here. And anybody who's listening, definitely go to websites, yourownuniversity.com, and join the community. And the other website, which one is which one is that?
So Lisha
Thank you.
Antiqua.com is really about work with me personally, and all of the courses and trainings and classes are at yourownuniversity.com. Both will lead you to me, and I really do hope to meet you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Definitely go connect, because she's got so much info out there that's going to help you if you're in this situation, and this was just an incredible conversation, and it's obvious that you are a woman who chooses life, and whose work reminds us that healing isn't just recovery, it's reclamation. And today you taught us that the journey back to ourselves isn't about forgetting about what happened. It's about remembering who you were before the pain and reclaiming the power that was never truly lost, right? We were just kind of separated from that, we learned today. And through your amazing, you method and your own university, you're helping survivors of trauma turn their stories into sacred medicine and transforming shame into sovereignty, fear into freedom, and survival into soul alignment. And reminding us that healing isn't a finish line, it's a practice, and it's a daily practice and a lifelong practice. It's the moment you decide that your story no longer controls you, you control how it's told. And so, if today's conversation spoke to something inside of you, definitely go over to our websites, check out yourownuniversity.com, take the next step to your own reclamation. You deserve to live life whole, free, and soul led, because that's what Passion from Pain is all about. Not just rising from the ashes, but remembering, you were made of fire all along, right? And I'm your host, Amy Pease, and I will see you all next time right here where healing meets truth and pain becomes your power. I love you guys. I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.